Hello everyone, I'm Serial, and this is a breakdown and opinion piece of the January 31st, 2023 WvW update. This update introduced new weekly rewards, upgraded camps, nerfed supply at keeps and SMC, upgraded both the Ballista and the Ram, as well as the Warclaw mount, and introduced a few quality of life changes. Before I dig into the mechanical changes, let's talk about the new rewards. Introduced in this update are weekly rewards for WvW. They reset on Sunday at 11:30 p.m. PST and consist of 7 different quests, only 6 of which need to be completed for the reward of 8 gold and 35 skirmish tickets. Now, skirmish tickets are already time-gated as it is on a weekly basis, so this will add to that existing pool that are available to you. As to the type of quests needed to be done for these weeklies, we have the following: capture 1 SMC, capture 5 keeps, capture 10 towers, capture 15 camps, capture 5 ruins, kill 15 yaks, and kill 50 players. I'm not yet sure if these will change on a weekly basis or not. I guess we'll find that out on Monday. So that's it for the rewards. I do think adding these rewards into the game mode are a positive change. I don't think it's really going to affect the already hardcore dedicated WvW players, but I do think it's going to bring new blood to the game mode, which is a positive thing for everybody. After all, without players, WvW is just a bunch of yaks running around the map feeding supply to objectives. Speaking of yaks and supply, let's discuss that next. Yaks themselves had 2 changes to them, the first of which is that they have 50% more health than they previously did. The second change is that yaks now deliver 60 supply when reaching SMC instead of the previous 50 supply. I don't think either of these changes to yaks will play a big role in the scheme of things. I'm basically neutral about this change. So not only did the yaks get a buff in this update, but so did the camps. The camps no longer start at 100 supply as their maximum cap. It is now 150 supply. Additionally, they no longer generate new supply at a rate of 10 supply every 30 seconds. It is now 15 supply every 30 seconds. And the final change at camps is that the supervisor now does 10% more damage and has 10% more health. I think this is a good change. I think camps should be the go-to place to get supply instead of going to a tower or a keep that just has a boatload of supply that's been stockpiled there. At least with a camp, it can be flipped by smaller groups, and hopefully with camps now having a larger supply cap and faster supply recovery rate, people will strive to defend them against smaller guild groups, thereby providing content for everybody involved. So then, in regards to supply and objectives, that's it when it comes to buffs. Now let's talk about the nerfs. Keeps have had their supply reduced. Previously, when you had a tier 0 keep, that's a keep that was just flipped, it would come with 500 supply as the maximum. That has now been reduced to 400 supply. Also previously with keeps, whenever they reached tier 1 and tier 3, the cap would increase by 300. That increase has now been reduced to 200. This means that the progression of supply at a keep used to be the following: start at 500, then go to 800, stay at 800, and then go to 1100. Now it goes from 400 to 600, stays at 600, and then jumps to 800. A similar nerf was placed at SMC. The base supply of a tier 0 SMC used to be 1,000 supply. It has now been reduced to 700 supply. And the SMC supply tier structure has also changed when it hits tier 1 and tier 3. Previously, the cap would increase by 400 supply. Now it only increases by 200 supply. This means that the progression of supply at SMC used to take a route that was 1,000, 1,400, stay at 1,400, then jump to 1,800. Now it's 700, go to 900, stay at 900, and then jump to 1,100. According to the developers, these changes in this update are overall meant to make it easier for attackers to get into objectives. And this certainly does that. Less supply will be stockpiled at an objective. However, if you spend your supply in an objective building siege, laying traps, and repairing walls, you probably won't notice this change that much. This simply affects the maximum supply cap that exists at an objective, and prevents high level of supply from being available at a moment's notice to defenders. If an attacker needs more supply, they can simply hop maps, grab supply at a keep that has presence of the keep in it, and get plus 10 supply. That's enough talk about supply and objectives. Let's move on to the siege upgrades. There were 2 pieces of siege that were upgraded, the Ballista and the Flame Ram. The Ballista had its health increased by 33%, and the number 3 skill, called Reinforced Shot, has had its range increased by 500 units. Without the rank 4 Ballista Mastery, the range was increased from 3,000 to 3,500. If you do have the Mastery, it was increased from 3,500 to 4,000. Personally, I don't care much for this update to the Ballista. I think the number 3 skill could have done with a shorter cooldown instead. Even with the 33% increase in health and the 500 units in range, we're still waiting 40 seconds before firing off the next shot. For the Flame Ram, it had its health increased by 25%, and it had a much more interesting upgrade to one of its skills. The number 4 skill in the Ram, known as Iron Will, used to apply a 50-man buff that lasted for 5 seconds and would give 50% damage reduction in a small radius of 300 units. It has been changed to last for 10 seconds and apply the boon in a radius of 600. This is a very unique change. It's rather atypical for a group to build Siege to fight effectively. The only use case I can really think of is using the Shield Gen's number 3 skill, Force Dome, to provide a 10-second buff to allies to get immunity to arrow cart damage. I foresee we will see a lot of this buff get used, the Flame Ram one. There is absolutely no reason not to use this before you push into a tower, whose gate you have just knocked down. You already have the Ram there, and if somebody's able to use the skill at the right time, you might as well. I also hope that we'll see more portal bombs that will use the Iron Will skill before appearing on top of enemies. At least that's a dream of mine. There is one other piece of Siege, if you want to call it that, which got a buff this patch, the Warclaw. Its chain ability to damage gates has been doubled from 2,000 damage to 4,000 damage. To give you some perspective on this, a paper gate, a single pull does about 1% damage. This means that it would take 100 supply to get through a gate only using Warclaws. So this is by no means the best method to get through a gate. However, if you were previously in an objective like SMC and you died and you have to waypoint and run back, you could pick up 20 to 25 supply at your keep and then use your Warclaw once you get to the inner gate and break it down again. This change should make it harder on defenders, as typically one of the first things a defending group does after a large group is broken in is to patch the gate closed and prevent any reinforcements from joining. Personally, I like this change. As a utility mesmer, I often have to portal players who die in the fight back into objectives we've been at for a while. I think with this change, it'll allow players who died to better get back into the fight on their own. And while we're on the topic of Siege, let's talk about the major bug that was fixed in this update. Siege will no longer knock other Siege users off their Siege if they have stability. This is a massive change for the attackers. As described by the developers, it was commonplace to put 2 katas behind a gate, and for them to rotate shots to keep any Ram users knocked back off the Siege, off the Ram specifically. Now, if the Ram users have stability, this tactic no longer works. This should allow for more reliable attacks on objectives. This is probably the biggest change in this patch, mechanical-wise. On a similar note to this, they finally fixed the bug where users on Pot of Oil could be CC'd. You now will not get CC'd while on your Pot of Oil. And now on to the quality of life changes. There are 3 quality of life changes in this update. First, they slightly increased the size of camp supervisors, tower lords, and keep lords to make them easier to locate in combat. Second, they increased the Warclaw's Blessing movement speed boon to affect allies in a radius of 600. It was previously 360. And third, miniatures can no longer be displayed in World v. World. According to the patch notes, the miniatures change is aimed to reduce screen clutter in large-scale combat, and because minis don't get stealth, and new players were being called out for it. So that's it. Those are the changes. In my opinion, I think the 2 changes that are going to affect gameplay the most are the stability on Siege and the Ram's Iron Will skill change. I think that with these 2 changes, objectives will be broken into quicker than ever before, and the defenders won't even have time to fully drain their supply when defending. Not only have Rams had their weakness removed by providing them stability, but they also provide a massive damage reduction boost when your squad moves into the tower. I expect to see Rams built to places other than gates for that 50-man, 600 radius, 10-second, 50% damage reduction buff. But only time will tell. In the meantime, this is Serial, and I'm out.